Fred Bugsy Buggs, Circle of Sisters 2015. Welcome. WLIB 1190, Hot 97. I'm with WBLS. It's been a great two-day affair. It's Sunday. I'm here with a guy, former Chief Philip Banks III. His brother Terry and I hung out for a lot of years in Queens. I moved to Cambridge Heights. And I can say this because he doesn't live there anymore, not in that area. And I said, man, what's the unmarked car doing around the corner? Who lives over there? Who is this? And Terry goes, no, that's my brother's house, man. You know, he's it was Brother Banks that was right around the corner from you, man. How you doing, neighbor?
Doing good, boss. How you doing? How you
What's
doing?
been going on?
I'm not in Cambridge Heights, but I'm in St. Albans.
Yeah,
not far, so.
I know. You were one of those officers and lawmen who has always been about the community because you grew up in the community,
Right.
and you always related to that. NYPD changed its focus after 9/11, and officers were looked at as being more military. But you always tried to push the issue about being in the community and knowing officers, knowing the people who live in the community. Why is that?
Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do. And oftentimes we had that great panel about the criminal justice reform and
I was gonna
what
come to
needs
that, yeah.
to take place. If you really just use as your base what's the right thing to do, then it'll always lead you down the right path. The second thing is that, to me, it never was the point where it was an option. I mean, dealing with the community is part of policing. And you could never effectively do your job without understanding, respecting, working with, admiring the community. Sure, you're going to have differences every once in a while, but if you looked at them as family,
Yes.
as you should look at them as family, realizing that you cannot be successful unless you do it. So it became very natural to me. It wasn't like an overt, I need to work with the community. It just came natural to me.
There was a police officer on Rockaway Boulevard in the 70s named Officer Jenkins from the 106th Precinct. And then you had the weed shops and a couple of places that may not have been too legal, but they had soapboxes in the window and everything else. But what everybody knew was that Officer Jenkins was on duty during the morning and the afternoon, and if anything was going to happen, it had to happen after he left. He knew everybody in that neighborhood. He knew your moms, he knew your grandmother, he knew your uncle, and he knew to come talk. When something happened, he knew who to talk to find out how to get to the bottom of it. And that's another reason why community policing is very important.
It's very vital. You know, Officer Jenkins, when my parents grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and they talked about Eddie the Cop. And they speak about him now, 50, 60 years later, on how much he had an impact. And the thing that they always say, what you just said, Bugs, he knew everybody and everybody knew him.
That's right.
And when that relationship, the power that can happen when people know each other,
That's right.
is something that's enormous.
Even the so-called gangsters in the neighborhood would go, nah, man, Jenkins is working this week, man. We got to calm down with this
Absolutely,
and everything else,
right.
and that's what's important. What are you doing now?
You know, I started a company called City Safe, and our motto is creating safety together. And I'm going around the country consulting with law enforcement entities and trying to show them how you need to leverage, right, that relationship with the community into your overall operational strategy so that you can actually sustain long-term, real crime reduction and quality of life. They're not two separate entities. They can't be done separately. If you do it separately, you'll have short-term success.
Yes.
You'll have long-term negative ramifications. And I'm going to show, as much as I possibly can, to those who are willing to listen, how you can police, and you can police respectfully, constitutionally, and you can achieve the same goals.
And doing it the way you're talking about doing it, that means that you don't have to continually fudge the reports or make it seem like you're dealing or you're fixing a situation that you're really not fixing. You put a Band-Aid on it, the Band-Aid falls off, then you got more blood.
Absolutely.
This is how you eradicate all the nonsense.
You eradicate everything, because what happens, you wouldn't have to do that, because if crime does go up or if crime goes down, the community police realize we're in this together.
Right.
So it's not like crime is going up. They're saying if it's going up, then the community starts saying, well, we need to get a little more actively involved. The police says we need to listen. So there's wonderful things happen on the power of working together, and that's what I'm looking to show law enforcement entities. How do you leverage that and how do you actually you implement it?
The panel was on prison reform, real prison reform at Rikers Island. 57% of the correction officers in the city are female. And what were some of the topics that came out of real prison reform on Rikers Island or in the New York City prisons?
Well, there was a few things, and I certainly have to acknowledge someone who I consider a friend, City Councilman Vanessa Gibson.
Yes.
And she brought up a lot of good points, and she spoke about solutions, some of the things that she was doing. The first thing I think that we all acknowledge that has to happen is that we have to stop having people in the prison system. In this country, I mean, it's the answer that we incarcerate. And one of the points that I would like to bring up, and it came up in the panel so eloquently, because you did something yesterday and you had success does not guarantee you're going to have success in the future. And one of the things that I would like to say to my colleagues in law enforcement, and this is certainly not a critique, we've done things well. And they may have worked in the 60s and the 70s. They may have worked in the 80s, but there's no guarantee that it's going to work in the future.
Different time now, baby.
So we talk about that reform because, and I don't know what the reform is in corrections, but because you have punitive segregation, because you have long incarceration sentences, because you want to lock people up for smoking marijuana, because it was effective in the 80s and 90s, doesn't guarantee success in the future.
Now.
You have to look at it differently and come up with real-time solutions. And if you want to do the right thing, it can happen. But if you want to defend a position that you're taking, even though that position may be premature, we'll be sitting back here next year talking about what type of change.
Going back over the same conversation over and over again. How can they find you to read up on what you've just talked about? Do you have a website?
Well, my website will be up actually 1 week Thursday. I'm going down to Chicago this Friday for an IACP conference.
Okay.
And that's a conference about chief police. You can go to my LinkedIn profile. My website will be up Thursday. It'll be www.citysafepartners.com.
.citysafepartners.com. Right. Citysafepartners.com.
And when I need people to go on, because it's going to be part of you pitching in and letting us know, right? And then when I say us, because I still consider myself to be part of the law enforcement community, what are some of the changes and things that you need effectively? You see, you can get these titles and you can get these big positions and you can feel that you know everything in the world, but the person who does the listening, who listens to the person who's actually involved in the fire every single day. And if you're listening and you have sincerity in your heart, they're going to tell you what the problems are. And it becomes very simple now to create the solution. You listen, you become a better leader.
You know, Chief Banks, people really wanted you to be the commissioner in this city. I mean, the people, the real people. And when you left the other year, it was about a year ago?
Yeah, almost a year ago.
Yeah, when you left about a year ago, folks were saying you were going to Chicago. They had you going to different cities. I was like, I hope he stays right here. And I'm glad that you decided to stay and that you're still working to try to fix the problem in NYC.
Always will.
We appreciate you, neighbor.
Thank you so much, my brother.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Philip Banks III. This is Bugs, 107.5 WBLS, 1190 WLIB, and Hot 97 Circle of Sisters, 2015.